This is a brief tutorial on adding line and curve tables to a drawing, where you might have lines that are labeled with a table tag style. In this example, we have our property boundaries for our two lots in white, and then we have easement lines, which are the red dashed lines, and the easements we have labeled with a table tag style rather than a line label style that might show bearing and distance information. We only have one curve in this example, which is maybe not ideal, but it will still give us some data to put together a curve table. And we have our one curve table tag label over here. Now, before we create a line table and a curve table, the first thing that I'm going to do is grab one of my line table tag labels, go over here and see what style it's on. If I go to my line label style, I see that it is set to table tag style. That's going to become important here in a minute. You can add line tables by going to the Annotate tab and then to the Add Tables button here, Line and Curve, Add Line Tables. But we are going to do it from the Survey tab because it has some other features that are going to come in handy for us in a little bit. But right now I'm just going to click on the Add Tables button, Add Line, and it pops up this window for me. I'm going to go ahead and change my layer to be text because that's what I like all of my text, including my tables, to print on. Set that to text. Maximum rows per table is set to 20. Now in this example, if we take a quick peek, we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 line labels that are going to go into our line table. So that's not going to be of importance to us. Our table is not going to have anywhere near 20 rows. But if you had, for instance, 60 line tag labels that you needed to add to your line table, then 20 might be a really good number for your maximum rows per table because you could split that table into 3 even stacks that were of even height if one table that was 60 entries tall was too big to fit in your paper space. If you had 45 lines that you had labeled with table tags, then you might want to set your maximum number of rows to 15 so that you get even height tables if you have to break it out into multiple stacks. Not going to come into play for us in this example though. Right before we added our table, we checked what line label style these tags were on, and they were on the table tag style. All of our line label styles are here, so we could include in this table any of these line labels. But we're just going to check the table tag style box, and that will give us the 7 labels that are on the table tag style. I'm going to hit OK, and I get this table here that I can drop anywhere I want in model space. Normally, I would drop it pretty well out to the side so that it's not in the way of any site work that I might be doing. But for the sake of this example, I'm going to drop it pretty close to my site here so that we just don't have to do as much panning and zooming. So I have my line table. It looks pretty wonky right off the bat. I've got fill behind it. It's all different colors. Looks really weird. So I'm going to grab my line table. I'm going to go up to Table Properties here, hit the drop down, and edit my table style. I'm going to jump over to the Display tab and expand this window out a little bit. I'm going to grab my first one there, hold Shift and select the bottom one to select all of these, and right off the bat I'm just going to set the color to Bilayer just to take some of the weird colors out of there. I hit Apply. The whole thing is turned yellow because it's on a text layer, which prints yellow according to my layers. So the whole thing is turned yellow because the fill that was behind there has turned yellow as well. I don't need that fill. So I'm going to find Title Area Fill. I'm going to set that to not be visible. Header Area Fill, not visible. Data Area Fill, not visible. Any of these that might end in fill, I'm going to turn them off, hit Apply again, boom, there's my table. Okay, things look a lot nicer now. Things are moving in the right direction. Everything else looks pretty normal. For me, I'm going to jump my header style up to 0.12 text height along with my title style. And my data style, I'm going to drop the text height to 0.08 because that's just how I like to print things in Paperspace. Makes things bold and they pop up at the top. And after looking at it, I might drop the header back to 0.08 as well. Hit enter. Okay, that looks a lot more like what I want to print. But we still have a few problems. A, it would be nice, since we have 7 lines, if they started with number 1, L1. And it would be nice if they were in order, at least. The other thing that I want to make sure that I do is in my drawing, I want the line table tags to be numbered in some sort of a logical way. So if this is L10, I don't want this to be L23, and this to be L6, and this to be L19. If somebody's looking at this once I've printed it to a piece of paper, and they see L10, but they're looking for L12, I want them to be able to follow this line around and say, oh, there it is. We want things to kind of progress in a logical way. But the other thing that we want is for our numbers to start from 1 in this example. That would be handy. So, because we're in the Survey tab, we have this button here, Renumber Tags. I'm going to grab that, start to run this command, and I'm going to select my first line label, and it renumbers to L25, L26, L27, so it's sequential, but it's not starting with 1. Now, we're still in this command. I'm going to hit Settings down here, and I see that my line starting number has been set to 15 for some reason, and then probably some lines have already been renumbered in this drawing, which is why we ended up starting at 25. I would like my lines to start renumbering from 1, so I'm going to set that to 1. That is actually for the creation. I'm sorry, that's for creating your line labels. Obviously, when I create them, it'd be great if they started at 1 to begin with, so I wouldn't be having to renumber them now. So I'll still set that to 1. Curve starting number is 5, because I already have one at 4 here, but I'm going to set that to 1 as well. It'd be great when I start creating labels in a drawing for them to start from 1. But I've already created them here, and they're not numbered correctly. So for the renumbering, the starting number, again, I'd love for it to be 1. When we start renumbering, if we could start at L1 and proceed up to L7. Curve starting number, I'm going to set that to 1 as well. Hit OK. I'm still in the command now. I'm going to click on this line. Oh, there we go. L1, L2, and then I'm going to proceed around. It doesn't really matter which direction, but let's just be logical about how we do this. 3, 4, 5, 6, and L7. Great. Hit escape. That looks beautiful. If I jump over here to my table, it is updated already, but it's not sorted correctly. It's showing me these lines, L3 through L7 first, and then L2 and L1, and even L2 and L1 aren't in a logical order. So how do I fix that? I'm going to grab my line table. I'm going to go up here to Table Properties, hit the drop down, and do Edit Table Style again. We're going to be in the Data Properties tab. Remember, we did some work over here in Display earlier, but we're going to jump back over to the Data Properties tab. And there's this little box here for sorting the data. I'm going to check that to sort the data. The sorting column, I'm going to choose the number 1 column to sort by in ascending order. If I hit Apply, there we go. Our data has sorted to now show me L1 through L7 in order. If for some reason you wanted to sort by the shortest length to the longest length, then you could set the sorting column to 2. And now it would sort by this column. And then if you hit Apply, now it's showing the lines by shortest length up to the longest length line. You could also sort by the direction column just by changing the column to 3, but we want to sort by 1, the line number. So I'm going to hit Apply again. Everything looks great. Okay. Now, how do I get this table into Paperspace? I've created an example layout in this drawing. The example that I drew in AutoSpace isn't very big, so we don't have a whole lot that is showing up here. But this is just an example sheet for you if you were putting together a plat document or something like that. And like I said, in most cases, I'm going to go ahead and move this off to the side. In most cases, this table, also it's good to note, you can select individual lines within the table. So don't think just because you clicked, you were zoomed out here and you went, oh, my table, and clicked, that you got the whole table. You might not. You might get a single line. So if you can click on a border, you'll get the whole table. And normally I would have it out to the side here where it's not in my way while I'm trying to do work. Then if I go back to my layout, okay, how do I get that table in here? Well, I already have a viewport here, so I'm just going to copy it and paste it next to the one that I've got, because why not? And I'm going to drag it to kind of fit within my sample border that I've set up in Paperspace. I'm going to enter the viewport and unlock it so that I can drag or pan over until I find my table. I'm going to zoom out a little bit to help me with that. Find it over here. And I'm going to set my viewport scale to 1:1. And the table is annotative, so it automatically, the size did not change when I set it to 1:1. I can go ahead and lock that and shrink this viewport well down so that it just fits the area that I need. And if we check once, our text height up here, remember, was 0.12 for our title, and sure enough, 0.116, that's pretty close. That's right what we're looking for. We can tell that it's 0.12, and down here, 0.75, yeah, 0.08 must be the text height through here. So that's great. So I now have my line table in Paperspace that I can print. And I can set it wherever I want in Paperspace. So the only other thing that we need now is a curve table for our lone curve in this instance. So we can jump back over to Model Space. Up here in our Add Tables button, Add Curve. And our curve label, our lone curve table tag, is on the table tag style. So I'm going to check that to include that, set my layer to text. We're including every label that's on the table tag style. Hit OK. And I get my very small curve table. I am going to select my curve table, go up here to Table Properties and Edit Table Style. Same way we did before. Go to Display and highlight all of my components and set them all to be by layer. Another thing that might be a better idea is to set them to by block, because that way, even if you have them on your text layer but you want to override them to something different, you don't have to change the layer. You can just manually override the color. And now I'm going to select my 3 fill components. Having a little trouble doing that. There we go. And I'm going to set them to not be visible. Hit Apply. I've got something that looks a lot nicer now. I'm going to go back to the Data Properties tab and set my title text height to 0.12, my header style and my data style text heights to 0.08, which gives me a nice looking table with regard to our text sizes. Hit Apply. Things look pretty good there. And again, we could sort our data by checking this box, but in this instance it really doesn't serve any value because we just have one piece of data, so we can't do any sorting in actuality. Alright, I think that's about all that we need to do here. I'm going to hit OK. And now since I only have one curve tag label in this drawing, I would love it if it was C1 instead of C4. I don't want to cause anybody who's looking at this sheet to see this label and think to themselves, oh, where are the other 3 curves? Where is C1? Where is C2? Where is C3? So for the sake of not confusing anyone, I'm going to grab that label. So I can do 2 things here actually, since I'm in the Survey tab. I could use my Renumber Tags command. Also, if you just grab a tag, there's a button here that allows you to renumber tags, but it will only renumber the one that you have selected. So it's not a command that runs constantly and allows you to go around and click on all of your labels in order. So I've got that renumbered, my table auto-updated. I'm going to grab my table and put it over here with my line table. I'm going to drop my curve table down here below it. I'm going to jump back over to paper space and grab this viewport. I'm going to copy it from its own endpoint down, and then I'm going to jump into it, unlock it, pan up a little bit. In fact, we'll zoom out until we messed up our scale now. We're not seeing our curve table. So we're going to set things back to 1 to 1. And if I pan down, I'm obviously doing something wrong. There's my curve table. These tables can be a little squirrely with annotation. I'm not going to pretend that I 100% understand why they do what they do, just that I know enough to make them do what I need them to do. So I've got my curve table there. Draw a line from the border of my other table straight down with ortho on, and then move this viewport based on the corner of my table over with my perpendicular snap so that the tables line up nicely now. This table is going to be a little bit wider because it has 4 columns. We need more pieces of data for a curve, the length, the radius, delta, and I can shrink this viewport down a little bit so that it fits my table. Bump this up. Alright, that's how you get a line and a curve table into paper space for your line and curve table tag labels. Okay, a couple of last minute cleanup things that we can do to our line and curve tables. One, it would be nice if we were denoting some units for the length of our lines. Also, the length is out to 3 decimal places, which is extraneous in my opinion for this use. So we're going to grab our line table, go up to table properties and edit table style, and down at the bottom here is where we're seeing our contents. So the line number, which is this column, the length, our second column, and our direction. Another thing that I'd like to do while I'm here is make our column headings all caps. It's just a preference of mine, personally. So I'm going to take the time to do that real quickly. Now, our length column, here's where the contents is stored, down here in this box. So I'm going to double click on that. Segment length is the property that I have in here. I'm going to click on it. It highlights. I am going to change the precision to 0.02 and then hit this arrow sign to go ahead and transfer the changes over. And the last thing I'm going to do is add an apostrophe after that for my units of feet. Now if I hit apply, all of my lines go down to 16. They go down to, to 2 decimal places with a little tick for our units of feet. Now with my curve table, I have a little bit more correction that I need to do. I have 3 properties here, the length, the radius, and the delta, but we really need 5 to define a curve the way we'd like to. The radius, the arc length, the chord bearing, and the delta angle is what I'm going to do in this example. So I'm going to grab my curve table, go up here to table properties and edit table style. I get this window that shows the 4 properties that I'm showing currently, including the curve number. So I'm going to go ahead and capitalize these like I did with the last one, just real quickly. In my length, I'm going to go ahead and pop this box open, adjust the precision to 2 decimal places for my length, add my units of feet to the end of it, and I'm going to specify in here that what I have here is the arc length. And if I double check again, it is the segment length, which is the arc length. So we're good there. For my radius, again, I would like ideally to have a precision of 2 decimal places. And I would like to have my units of feet in there. I'm going to capitalize this real quickly. My delta, I want my delta to be my delta angle. So I'm going to specify that in the title. That is the delta angle. And when I go into my composer here, I see that it's the segment delta angle, which is what I want. I am going to try to change the format of this, though, from degrees to degrees, minutes, seconds. So I'm going to click on decimal, hit the drop down here for format, and I can change it to degrees, minutes, seconds. And I don't need, in this instance, personally, I don't particularly want to see even the 2 decimal places on the seconds. I don't really care if there are any spaces in there. If I go ahead and apply this, it's to a precision of 1 second instead of 0.1 seconds. So that's what I want. I've applied that by hitting the arrow here. I hit OK, so I now have my delta angle. Now I need to add 2 more columns for my chord length and my chord bearing. So I'm going to hit this green plus sign. I get a new column here. I'm going to double click in this empty spot to name it. And I'm just going to slap some text over here that says chord length. Hit OK. Now I'm going to go into my composer, which is down here. Again, another empty spot. I'm going to double click. Brings up my composer. I'm going to choose the segment chord length for the property that I want. I am going to round this to 2 decimal places. Go ahead and apply that property. And I do want it to be centered. So if I go over to the Format tab, I can justify this to center. And then I'm going to add my units of feet as well, right there at the end with that apostrophe. That's my chord length. I need 1 more column for my chord bearing. Green plus sign again. Click in this empty area to name it. Chord bearing, there we go. Everything looks right. For my chord bearing, I'm going to click on this empty spot here to open up my composer again. I'm going to choose the property segment chord direction. And I'm going to leave it in degrees, minutes, seconds, which I like. And with a precision of 0.01 seconds, I'm going to go ahead and just set that to 1 second. I don't feel the need to be more precise than that. I'm going to go ahead and apply that property, jump over to the Format tab, and justify this to the center. And I'm going to hit OK. So now I have 5 properties. I have my curve number and then my 5 properties: arc length, the radius, the chord length, the chord bearing, and the delta angle. And I am going to grab this column and rearrange these. I like to start with the radius, then the arc length, then the chord length, then the chord bearing, and the delta angle last on the far right. And we'll see if I hit apply now that my table has expanded. I've gotten these 5 properties in the order that we discussed. Our units look right. Our radius should be in feet, and it is. Our arc length should be in feet, and it is. Our chord length likewise. We have our chord bearing in degrees, minutes, seconds, and our delta angle also in degrees, minutes, seconds, both to a precision of 1 second, which is what we like to see. So I'm going to bring this back up and hit OK. We've made all of the changes there that we want to make. And then we would just bounce back into Paperspace and drag our viewport out so that we can see everything that we need to see. So that's how you put together your line and curve tables